There is a secret beta build, a more advanced patch that people got to review early on. Game Radar is like a big website that does a bunch of game reviews, and they got to see it, and we're also gonna check that out. Let me close my game. Alright.
Monster Hunter Wilds is quickly becoming my most played early access game of 2024. Following an open beta which ate 15 hours of my life last month, I recently visited Capcom headquarters in Osaka, Japan to spend 5 hours with a newer but still
They flew you over to Japan, man. I am so mad now. That would have been
unfinished build of this monster hunting action RPG. In an interview, Monster Hunter Wilds director Yuya Takuda stressed that the final game will be more polished still, with special attention paid to the PC version, said to deliver the same level of frame rate improvement. This is a good sign because what I played was already excellent. Granted, this was just a small vertical slice and purely single player. Having multiple hunters on screen may have affected the frame rate, to say nothing of other portions of the game. But on a base PS5 with graphics set to prioritize resolution, Monster Hunter Wilds was as smooth as glass, and felt every bit like the year-devouring behemoth I want it to be.
Bro, if I get like 30 FPS consistently, I'm happy. I am not asking for much. I got a graphics card here, a 1660 Super, that's the minimum. I am gonna overclock it tonight. We're gonna be trying out Monster Hunter World. We're gonna I can run it easily, right? It's not a problem, but I wanna overclock it just to see what happens, you know?
The core game obviously hasn't changed dramatically since the beta, but playing Monster Hunter Wilds in this setting still feels fresh. There was no technical obfuscation this time, and no painfully short leash around my neck. This was just the subject to change opening hours of the game, meaning I had access to more monsters as well as the all-important crafting system. The new and returning monsters are fantastic, one of my new all-time favourites among them, and I'm rapidly warming up to the revised armour skill system. Like Dolphin Duolingo, everything is clicking. I spent most of my session bashing skulls with a hammer, since my true love, Lance, was one of 2 weapons I was advised not to use.
The Lance is infamously terrible right now. It's I think it is the worst weapon in the beta right now. I tested it for I don't even know, 20 minutes. We tried to kill a Doshaguma with it. I did no freaking damage. It does no damage anymore, so they are definitely gonna buff it. They have to. It's so... Granted, Monster Hunter is never balanced, it will never be balanced, but this weapon is on another league. The heavy bowgun, we're making a tournament, by the way, long story short, it's on the Discord if you want to check it out. We had to ban the heavy bowgun, for example, and the gun lance, because they do so much freaking damage compared to every weapon. A normal weapon compared to the bowgun is insane already, but a lance compared to even a mediocre weapon is astronomical. I don't know how they messed it up that bad. My bet is they are gonna buff the damage a lot. I mean, what else are they gonna do? That's the problem.
They're due for substantial changes ahead of Monster Hunter Wilds release in February. Capcom is promising big upgrades for Lance and Switch Axe, and Takuda added Insect Glaive and Sword and Shield to that list in an interview, emphasising control issues and focus mode fiddliness, with many changes informed by beta test feedback. To the delight of Hammermane and Monster Hunter producer Ryozo Sugimoto, a lot of people visiting the studio used a hammer. As I blitzed through the story,
it's hammer, long sword, and great sword, and of course you got all the ranged weapons. But the top melee weapons right now, different world entirely. Hunting horn is also pretty bad, but it's a support weapon. The insect glaive is okay. I didn't play Worlds, so I don't have that feeling of I miss my abilities. Apparently they got a bunch of the old abilities from the insect glaive in Wilds. I played it, I thought it felt awesome, right? The new focus mode makes it feel really good. You can just be in the air and aim the monster, but people that played Worlds think it sucks.
Quests, a great sword made short work of creatures with smaller, less hammer-friendly heads, most notably the new spider monster Lala barina, whose balletic movement and rose theming have quickly won it a place in my heart. Lala barina was the monster I hunted the most. Not to grind materials, but because mastering fights and watching my hunt times go down is a big part of enjoying Monster Hunter for me.
I love the hair
spiny thing
mechanic.
moves like nothing else in Monster Hunter, pouring at you with obsidian claws and pirouetting away to launch volleys of paralysing spores. At once freaky and beautiful, it's an instant classic. Other newcomers include the fire-breathing Q Matrice, who feels like a goth, less dopey version of Yian Cut Ku. My fellow Hammer appreciators will be pleased to hear that it stops just short of presenting it.
Oh, by the way, guys, this one apparently is gonna be in the beta. It's not a confirmed, it's just like a rumor, like some of the streamers were saying it. I believe it, because they do know, like, some of this stuff. So yeah, we're probably gonna get to see this one in the beta.
Its skull on a silver platter, prime for cracking. Returning crowd favourite, Conga Lala, a big pink monkey that farts on you, is in prime condition too. He's pink, he farts, he is perfect. The pinnacle fight for our session was Uth Duna, a gargantuan leviathan that flops around like a whale that took up sumo wrestling after beaching in Japan. Uth Duna echoes the oceanic beauty of Monster Hunter Worlds' elder dragon Namielle, crimson scales draped in pearlescent fins.
You know something I don't really like about Wilds and World, and like, I get it, they gotta take the franchise somewhere, but I come from like the older Monster Hunter games, and like I always thought like the Polynesian mythology kind of like Monster Hunter theme of the earlier games, you know, where you're like in an archipelago and it's all like island based. I kind of miss that aesthetic here. It kind of looks like more generic fantasy, which, don't get me wrong, it looks fine, but I think like the aesthetic identity of the game is kind of gone a little.
Duna gave me more trouble than anything I've encountered in Wilds, including Ray Dow in the beta. It moves like a waterbed with legs, and many of its attacks send disruptive waves splashing around the arena. A fun way to handle AoE attacks that makes Worlds' Lunastra look even worse by comparison. It slams and belly flops with quaking impact, the soundtrack swelling perfectly to accentuate it. I thought this would be a forgettable walking hitbox type of monster, but it ended up being my second favourite after Lala barina.
You know what I think is happening? Like, I think those...
Second favourite after...
I think every single movement like this...
Lala barina.
That looks like an active frame. This looks like it's gonna be super annoying. Because, like, it's probably not even gonna do a lot of damage, but, like, every time it readjusts, it's probably, like, an active frame where you're gonna take damage. That's gonna piss me off.
No. All of my hunts felt better than the Monster Hunter Wilds beta for a few reasons, even without that performance bump. For one, Hit Stop is back, baby! I could sense those charged swings in my palms. It's not Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate levels of oomph, but it's there, and that's what matters. Takuda said they were actually encouraged by all the Wilds beta players clamouring for more hit stop feedback after Monster Hunter Worlds' audience apparently hated it, and finishers will be even juicier in the full game.
It makes the animation
like
so much
monsters didn't
smoother.
run away as often as they did in the beta either, perhaps due to maps having fewer large monsters in town to cause turf wars and clashes. I was able to kill most monsters in 1 or 2 areas, which is about what I would expect. The fact I could actually craft gear to hunt monsters more efficiently helped, and this ended up eating a sizable chunk of my session. The process of crafting or upgrading a weapon is pretty much unchanged from World or Rise so far, a tree of options with crafting and upgrade material requirements, but I get the impression there's much more customization to come. The headliner here is how armor skills are now split between your armor and your weapons, with weapons themselves carrying more offensive and specific skills. Here are a few combinations that stood out to me. Attack boost and guard on a lance, charge up on a hammer and slugger on another hammer, rapid morph on a charge blade, and focus on a greatsword. One goal here, Takuda tells me, is to support the 2-weapon system by tying some skills to your weapon and letting your armor bring the more generalist and defensive skills. You can also add decorations and customize it to your liking so that you find your favorite way of hunting, he says. I specifically
don't like
asked
the
if our
secondary
endgame
weapon system,
loadouts will
honestly.
match the setups we
We're
had
gonna see
in
how it
World or
works.
Rise in terms of skill quantity and level. Takuda says they've added new skills, preserved some iconic ones, and adjusted or compressed a few others, from 5 ranks down to 3 for instance, but didn't share what a maxed loadout may look like, presumably for spoiler reasons. More needs to be seen here. Early game builds don't allow for such depth. But so far, I like the idea. It's different, it gives weapons more vectors than attack and sharpness and slots. It lets overlooked but comfy defensive skills shine a bit brighter. I just hope the grind to upgrade weapons is a rewarding one, and that max loadouts don't feel neutered. This needs to be more than a reason to justify the 2-weapon system. I'm looking over my post-beta Monster Hunter Wilds wishlist and having a hard time coming up with anything that wasn't noticeably better in this updated build. The UI is still cluttered by unnecessary information, and the item pouch feels a bit worse than it did in recent games.
Yeah, like navigating through the items is a pain in the butt. I don't know, honestly I think it might be not even that the UI is bad, but there is so many more items. Like in the beta they gave you like everything. You can get the bobs, the traps, everything in one, like right away. And you know, you're trying out a new game and it's kind of overwhelming that you're given everything at once. You know, when you start a game you only got one item and you do a quest and you get the next item and so on and so forth. So you kind of like learn one item at a time, but like they throw you into this and you got like 10 items in your inventory already. It's kind of a pain. That's also one of the reasons that we are banning items in the tournament. We kind of just want to keep it as approachable as possible. Also, it makes it harder, obviously.
Those are the only negatives I can come up with at this point. We're doing pretty good. Several elements have also improved on World, the closest direct comparison for Monster Hunter Wilds, and Rise, the most recent mainline game. Monster Hunter Wilds' story is starting to come into focus, and it seems surprisingly strong for a series that typically handles its narrative by handing you a sword and a guild card and then pointing at the nearest monster and saying, kill that for research.
That's all we need. If they put cutscenes, like a bunch of cutscenes, they try to make this a playable movie, I'm gonna get pissed off. Every game is trying to do that now. Like, what was so wrong about that? What's so wrong about just drawing you a sword and go play the freaking game? It's the way it's been every time. Why does it have to be different now? God.
Mainline game. So far, Wilds does a much better job at communicating the importance and purpose of hunters, the dangers some out-of-control monsters present, and the motivations for your allies. It's all ultimately set dressing for a game where you'll inevitably research a monster into hamburger meat, so you can then research its offspring into a nice hat.
Okay, also on that I disagree. Like, I think the motivations of the characters on the older games were pretty memorable, like the awkwardness of the quest girl in Monster Hunter 3. You remember that entire thing? Like every time she would give you a quest, she would like talk about the personality of the monster, and it was like a high school joke, like, oh, this monster likes imitating other monsters to fit in, just like I when I was younger, or something like that, you know, like there is personality to be have. Even I would dare say there was a lot of personality with the older Palicos before they spoke. People are pissed off at the Palicons talking. Like, people are not happy about that. I'm on the fence about it. I just hate the voice they chose. Honestly, that's it. I think like if they went for like a different direction for the voice acting, I wouldn't be so mad about it. I don't think they are making them talk is terrible as an idea, but yeah, I don't know. I miss the old Palicos. Like when you read it, it kind of felt like different. Now it just feels like, oh, I am a cute anime cat. Back then it was like completely clueless, you know? Like that was the joke of the old Palicos, right? That they were like completely innocent and they were thrown in like the most awful situation ever. And they just were so innocent to like tell what's going on. That is gone now. That is completely gone now. It's just like, oh, meow, there's a monster. Hate it.
But it is decently compelling set dressing, with cutscenes aplenty. For a notoriously dense series, Wilds paces and explains itself pretty well too, which in Monster Hunter terms means it'll probably only be kind of confusing for newer players.
Dual Blades
Key
looks
quests
so
are teed up a
lame.
bit more like a traditional RPG. New areas and mechanics are introduced gradually, and side quests are clearly labelled in your periphery. Hey Hunter, they seem to say, if you're on the arse end of an arse kicking, try upgrading your gear a bit. The soul and flow of Monster Hunter are unmistakable, but you can tell Capcom has been working on ways to make Wilds more appealing to a broader audience post-World. I have played Monster Hunter Wilds for 20 hours at this point, but exclusively in the worst ways possible. The magic of Monster Hunter is setting your own goals, taking your sweet time getting there, experimenting with weapons and builds, and messing around with friends at every opportunity. Rushing through 5 early hours to see and record as much as possible at a press event is just about the worst way to play, and 5 hours is nothing. That is a snack. That is...
Oh yeah, you know, I was talking to some people in Team Darkside, like they're like some of the top speedrunners in world, and of course, if you're gonna do a tournament for Wild, you wanna invite those people. And I talked to a bunch of them, and they were kinda nice, they were really nice to me. And they were like, I'm sorry man, like you only got 3 days to try out everything. I don't think I'm gonna have time. We're gonna be grinding everything just to put it on videos, you know, like it's a race. It kinda kills the fun of a beta when you're that way. And I feel it, right? You gotta do it. It's like when the most eyeballs are on the game, you gotta show it. But yeah, it definitely is not the greatest thing. She's absolutely right.
Is exactly 1% of my Monster Hunter World playtime. Even so, I left this 5-hour preview with renewed hunger and impatience. February 28th, 2025 can't come soon enough. Monster Hunter Wilds continues to look and feel great, and now it actually runs encouragingly well, at least on PS5, though the PC version still has a big check to cash. Are you excited for Monster Hunter Wilds? If so, what are you most looking forward to about it? Let us know in the comments, and stick with Games Radar for the latest previews, reviews, and more.
Don't get me wrong, the game looks like a PS3 game. Can we get that out of the way? Can we be honest for a minute? Like, some of the parts look fine. I think they sent us to the most boring zone for the beta, like a desert with nothing on it. Of course, that's not gonna look cool. But like, there is not a huge gap of fidelity between like Worlds and this. I do not see it. There is some, I would say, like the monsters are a little more detailed, but like, this is my gripe. This is what people don't get when I say like the optimization is the biggest problem with the game. This doesn't look like 5 times better. Why do you need 5 times better hardware to run this game than Worlds? My GPU is like at 5% when I'm playing Worlds. I just got it. We're gonna play it later today. I tested it. It was at 5%. I gotta overclock my GPU at like 115% to run the game at like 30 FPS. Just let that sink in, okay? Like, something is really wrong with this game. I sure do hope they fix it, because I played the beta and I love the freaking game. That's why I'm mad about it. But it still pisses me off, you know? The monsters and the players don't feel like they are part of the world. It's like they pop out, not in a good way. I am not a huge fan of the desert aesthetic they went for, like the clothing of the characters. Once again, like the original Monster Hunter, it was all about the Polynesian aesthetic, you know, like Hawaii and like the Pacific Islander people. I don't see that aesthetic here anymore. I don't see it. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna take her word. Okay, copium here. We're gonna take that copium. It's gonna run better, guys. It's gonna run better.